Welcome to Creatives in Quarantine. I'm Tiwana Floyd, your host. This week I talked to John Banks, a lumber broker, an improviser, a stand-up comic, and a co-host of the podcast History Defeats Itself. Guys, this was my first interview. Thank you, John, for bearing with me. I didn't know what I was doing, but I figured it out along the way. And so here we are. Enjoy. So what are you known most for creative-wise?
I would probably say my podcast with my friends Greg Mitchell and Kevin Rosenquist called History Defeats Itself. And the only reason I would say that is because that's something that we actually can track the metrics of, and you know that we average. I think we're averaging now about 600 or 700 downloads per episode.
Oh, that's great. Is it?
Yeah, it's really cool.
It sounds great. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's like there's estimated 1.5 million podcasts out there right now, and most of those don't go past 3 episodes. And so we are now, so we've published like 28, 29 episodes, something like that. And so I would say, so that's probably it. As a comedy podcast, I would probably say that is the thing that I'm known for. My parents know me for improv and I did stand-up comedy years ago, but I don't think anyone knows me for that. So
there's no one from your life and from that part of your life that's like, oh yeah, I know John, he's a comic, right? Not really.
There's probably, there's a couple of friends, but that I still am in touch with, but probably 3 people that I still know who actually ever saw me do stand-up.
Okay. So how did you come to do stand-up, then to improv, then the podcast?
So I was selling cars. I was selling Toyotas in a little dealership in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and been doing that for a couple years. Do it.
Where you're from?
I'm actually from a town called Jasper. I was actually, which is about, I think it was about 4,300 people, 4,500 people, something like that when I was born there. Who knows what it is now? Probably 4,600 people. it's not a growing town. But anyway, but I grew up in this town called Tuscaloosa, and so I was working there, and I just realized that I wanted to not do that. So, and I'd always wanted to do comedy, so I sold everything I owned, and I moved up to Atlanta and crashed on a friend's couch and started doing stand-up, and then was in Atlanta for 6 months, and then came out to Phoenix, and was in Phoenix for a little over 2 years, and then from Phoenix to LA, and then I got to LA and just, I didn't want to do the late nights anymore and do all that. So I started selling furniture. So living the dream. I showed all those people who said I wouldn't make it.
Showed them.
That's right.
So when you were in Atlanta, you started your stand-up in Atlanta.
Yeah, it was like in Atlanta, it was all amateur stuff, just like open mics. And then when I ended up in Phoenix, I was part of this, I started doing these comedy competitions at the Tempe Improv. And then, so I was doing that for a long time, and that was like a regular thing. And that was really cool because it was, it was like, and I have no idea how many people would sit in this like in their little comment, but probably like 250, 300 people.
Oh, that's a decent amount of people.
Yeah. And so what I discovered was that, so when you're doing a coffee shop, if you make half the people laugh and there's only 4 people there, then you have 2 people laughing, which doesn't feel it feels like you're failing, and it doesn't feel like what you're doing is funny. But when you have 300 people sitting in an audience and half of them are laughing, it feels like everyone is laughing. So it's such a different energy.
Right.
And it's so much easier to be funny and to do comedy and to have your sets, but break away from them and riff with the audience and do all these things, because you just feel so much more confident on a stage when there's that kind of audience. So.
And so when you were doing, so they say that, you just talked about energy. They say that the more people laugh, the funnier the jokes get. Is having almost 200 people laughing would make you funnier, or?
That's what's really funny, because so I would do these, I had all these different sets, and they would be 3-minute sets to 7-minute sets. And basically the way you do it, if you get 15 minutes on stage, then you kind of piece together those things you already have planned and you make your set. Because a lot of times you wouldn't know how much time you were going to get until you're actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is you're not funnier, but you could do it one night and it's like really crazy. If people aren't laughing, then it gets worse and worse and worse. And people, it just feels so terrible. And that 15 minutes feels like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you get an audience, like, say there's like some woman in the audience who thinks you're funny and she has like a really infectious laugh, and then she starts laughing, and then everyone around her starts laughing, and then it just gets really easy, and then everything you're saying is funny. And then, so it's, I think it's more about people being in the mood to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
Right. I think, and you would think people going to a comedy club would always be in that mood, but not really.
Right. I never thought about it that way. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the same with like nights we would do improv. Like there were nights we would do our shows, and man, you just felt like you couldn't drop a bad joke or you couldn't do a bad scene. And then there's other nights where you're just like, I wish.
They don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get this comedy.
They don't. It's too high. It's too highbrow for them. These idiots.
They're just too pretentious, and we're doing lowbrow stuff tonight.
Yeah. So they're not our people. But yeah, so that was kind of a lesson that I learned early on, was that you really, and that's the thing too, is like being able to find those people who have that great laugh, to get them, or who also just laugh easily, and you get them going, and you like start playing with them, and you kind of involve them in your act, and because then, from there it's everybody just kind of joins in.
Yeah.
So, because I would do the same set 2 nights in a row, and one night it would bomb, and the next night it would be amazing, and the only difference was the audience.
Right, exactly. So you did that for some time in Arizona.
Right, and then I came out to LA, did it. Yeah, I did it a little bit in LA, but that was the thing, is like, so when I went to the Hollywood Improv and said, hey, I've been doing the Tempe Improv, and they were like, we don't care. This is LA, and that's Arizona. This is California, that's Arizona. Who gives a shit? So I had to start over back in coffee shops.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to like go back to like being in front of 15 people, and 14 of them were all there for the open mic, and the person who wasn't was somebody's girlfriend or boyfriend. And it just painful.
That sounds painful. That doesn't sound fun.
No.
That's the thing about LA. Not a lot of things cross over well here.
No. They really don't.
Your prerequisites don't fly.
Yeah.
College. Only at the state colleges, but not at universities.
Yeah. So it was, and it, but I will say the one thing that I did get comfortable at was, and I can still to this day, like I do cells, and I can be in front of a room and it can be flat, and I can keep going, and their mood doesn't affect me because I've done stand-up comedy and bombed.
Right.
Like really bombed.
Audiences.
Yeah.
Clearly. So then the transition, okay, so you said you were selling furniture, and I know you don't do that anymore. So then how did you transition, and what is the job that you do now?
So now I'm a lumber broker. I'm still in sales, but so I basically just sell wood to people who either manufacture things out of wood or create what they make out of wood. And that is how I make my living. And then my creative outlets are the improv that I do with you and our 2 other friends, the podcast. And then what's really interesting, I still write stand-up. Like I'm going to do it someday. And that's usually when I'm high. Usually I'll like smoke a joint. And I'm like, oh man, I got some really good ideas. And sometimes I go back and they're pretty good. And most of the time they're like, So
with the stand-up, is it because the world is crazy and you just need to get these ideas down the comedic side of it, or?
I think it's, so Jeff, there was a documentary with about comedians, and I don't remember it may have been the Jerry Seinfeld one. I can't remember who, but anyway, I remember Jeff Foxworthy was talking about how comedians, they're like everybody else, but they just where normally this thought would pass through your head, or someone would say something in a conversation and it just goes and it's into the ether and it's gone. It's like comedians kind of latch onto it because it's what the skill is recognizing that it's funny, and then recognizing that it's a funny concept, So how can you expand it and make it bigger? And so it's like, I guess it feels good because I just like to keep that. I think that I'm pretty quick-witted.
Yeah.
I don't know that I am, but I think that I am. Maybe I'm an idiot. But so, and it's like to keep that skill sharp, just in case I ever do start doing stand-up again. It's like I'll have all this stuff, and I really do miss. I do miss being in front of an audience like that, because it is a very like it is yours, right? You bomb, it is yours. If you succeed, it is yours.
Yeah.
So
you earn both.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then again, but like with improv, the thing that I love about improv is that it's like you get to, the audience, you know this because you've experienced, the audience is way more forgiving of bad improv than they are of bad acting or bad stand-up or bad singing or anything that someone had time to prepare for. It's like they give you the chance to fail because that's the thing is, I think a lot of times people go to stand-up comedy shows and there's like, not everyone, but there's certain people who just want you to fail. And there's other people wanting to succeed. But I feel like people who go to improv, because I have sat through bad improv and it's really terrible to watch, but it's like you want them to win, right? And so it's like you're going in with a completely different attitude and expectation. So that part is also, they both have their benefits.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially during, those quiet improv nights where you're just watching people and they just keep trying something new. And then it's like, I'm just going to clap.
Yeah. Or they try something new and it's brilliant and it just works. And then all of a sudden you're just like, you're so happy for them. And then you also, it's like you get to feel as the audience member, it's like you were there for this thing that's may or may not ever happen again.
Right.
So,
yeah, I heard on a podcast, I can't recall which one it is. I listened to so many, but they talked about Burt Reynolds and he was working with some director and they just weren't really getting along and Burt wasn't having a really good time. The director kept redirecting him until finally Burt says, you know what, to the director, a little attaboy help me out.
Seriously, right?
And the director is like, attaboy, Burt. And then from there, I guess, they were able to move forward and do it. But it's like, yeah, everybody needs a little validation from now and again.
Yeah.
The status.
It feels good.
Yeah.
Right? We all want to be recognized for the things we do well.
Especially when we're bombing.
Yeah. So, because we're like at our most insecure and we're just like,
right.
Someone love me.
A little something.
Yeah.
And so then how did you transition? So how did the podcast come to be?
Well, so I guess a little over a year ago, my buddy Kevin called me up and said, hey, he's like, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. He goes, would you be interested in doing it? And I go, yeah. He's like, what do you want? I said, what do you want to do? He's like, I'm not really sure. So then we started workshopping and like figuring out what do we want to do. And so we both really like history and we both like comedy. So we ended up making a comedy podcast about history. So the concept is that it is, we're taking a topic, for example, our last one was on concussions, and one person will do the research, and there's three of us now, so I'll get to Greg in a minute, but one person will do the research, and the other two have no idea what's going to happen. And so our job is to make the topic not boring. So we're just constantly berating the person who did all the research and like making jokes and just trying to interrupt them and then like it's gotten like we have a pretty good rapport with it now. We have a pretty good like in the beginning we were stepping all over each other. We don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the concept. And so then so we kind of figured out what we wanted to do, and then we reached out to our friend Greg, and Greg was like, yeah, man, let's do it. He's like, absolutely, I want to. And so then and it was really funny because we started and we did I think 6 test episodes. Because we could not get the audio right over Skype.
Oh, okay.
So eventually, so we finally figured out how to do that. And so we all record on our own and then we all upload it. And so it's like a whole process. And a shout out to Kevin Rosenquist, because without him, it would not exist, because Greg and I are both very lazy. We don't edit. It's like, we'll do research on topic and we'll make jokes. That's what we do.
Right.
Yeah. And Kevin has really without Kevin, it would not exist.
You
for
could
sure.
be on the phone or doing this, cracking jokes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's when we've hung out, not recording, we have a great time, but it's like, and we're trying to, also we're trying to make something that we can all walk away from our jobs and do it full time. And and we actually we have our first sponsor ever. And it was just product, and they're not paying us for this. I'm not going to mention on this.
Yeah.
But, but it was like they sent us products, and then it was like fun because it was like this like trimmer for men, like a, undercarriage trimmer.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And
under the trousers.
Yeah, under the trousers. Yeah, exactly. Specifically for that. So then we just, and they even told us, like, you guys go wild with it. And so it's like we get to be us. And so that was like, it was also really cool to kind of see that we can, when we have the numbers, we can really reach out to the types of companies we want to reach out to and do the thing without censoring ourselves and just be us and sell their product. So, because I will say, I think that's really changed in the last 10 years. There's like a lot of companies now that you can go with some like lowbrow blue humor and, they don't care.
Yeah.
So,
The days have changed.
Yeah.
And being more of ourselves is definitely something that's changed as well. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So how do you know the name History Defeats Itself? That's hilarious.
It was actually Kevin's brother. Like we were like kicking around names and I don't even remember what some of the names were, but none of them were good.
A couple of failed ones was.
Yeah, and we didn't like any of them, and we kept like emailing each other, texting each other, what about this, and then that was my girlfriend.
That's gonna happen.
It does. Yeah. She anyway, yeah, so his brother, Kevin's brother, came up with the name. He's like, oh, what about this? And we loved it. Because we definitely wanted history in it, and then it was like and history defeats itself was just like, because everyone knows history repeats itself. It's such a common thing people say, and so it was like a really good play on words. So.
That's great. So so basically you guys are kind of ahead of the game. I'm sure that most podcasters do this anyway, where they record from different places. So, but because you were already doing that, how long have you been doing this now, the podcast?
We started in January of 2019, but I think we actually published the first one like March or April, because like I said, we kept trying it, and the audio, we would love the topics, but they were just, the audio was terrible. Mm-hmm. So finally, and then I got another friend who's he's an editor, and so we like picked his brain, and he basically said, you guys need to record. You all need to record on your own devices and then upload it. He goes, that's the best way to do it, because he goes, unless you all put it in, I forget, there was some sort of like
crossover or something.
Well, there's some sort of line you can basically put into your house. So for example, if you did voiceover stuff.
Oh yes,
yeah. So it's like he's like, if you all did that and you had your direct line, he goes, but the problem is like you have too many people on your internet feed, so you're getting a lot of distortion.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but
so it's a little over a year now, and here we are in the pandemic where we're working from home and doing these types of things anyway. So you guys didn't have to stop.
No, in fact, we started doing. We had like in the beginning of quarantine. So what we do is we do every other week. Mm-hmm. We all have full-time jobs, and so we were doing every other week. And then during quarantine, because we're all working from home, we started doing. We were doing like quarantine episodes. So we were doing every week for a while. Yeah, so we were able to knock out a couple, and it was really interesting because we all realized really fast, because we were still working, even though we were working from home, we were still working. So it was like, it's a lot, because to research a topic, generally we invest about 8 hours doing it, right? And then so it's like, and we all have 40-hour work weeks, and then and so it was just, by the time we would throw that on top of it, and we were doing it every week, it was really getting, it was so we were like, wow, we need sponsorship, and so we can just quit.
Yeah. That's the goal. I think.
Yeah, that is the goal.
And so what happens if you guys, I don't know if your platform is open to comments or anything, but what happens, like I used to work at Apple, and one of the things that I was trained on was to know that there are people that come in purposely to try and trick you and see if you know your tech stuff. So if there's ever a time where you reach your black plateau of information, seek out one of your peers that can take it to the next level. And so just knowing that there are people are out there purposely to come in to trick you. And I've had it happen, and I've actually had to go and get one of my peers and then watch them go toe to toe and use one of you choose the best ones, like who was good for this person, and then that person will win, and then we're all high-fiving at the end of it, because we're just trying to work. So my question is, if you have a platform where people can comment, do you get people that try to tell you what the history truly is or whatever?
Well, so we do a disclaimer in the beginning where we always say we are not historians.
That's great.
We do this research. It's, and we do take the research seriously, and we try to give the best information we possibly can. Right. And we've had a lot of people reach out, and we actually love it. Like we love, like, we know we're going to get things wrong.
Yeah.
So we love when people go, hey, actually, this thing happened in this date, or that's not quite true because, the women's lib started at this time, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And we also decided before we ever release an episode that we were not going to engage with assholes on social media.
Oh, good.
Not going to get into wars. But what we had decided to do was, and we never really did it, because what we found was when someone, like, and it's been very rare. We did an episode on flat Earth conspiracy, like in the history of that and how that kind of came to be. Mm-hmm. And we really thought it wouldn't be a big deal. And that was the most controversial episode we did. Like, it started a war on our Facebook feed. Right. And so we just sat back and watched it happen. Right. Yeah. And then did that because, like, you have people who believe the earth is round, and you have people who believe the earth is flat, and the people who believe the earth is flat it's a growing number, and it goes down by generation. So the younger people are, the more likely they are to believe that the earth is flat, because we are losing belief in institutions. Right. And it is what it is. And so, but that was it was like crazy. I mean, people were just like, being very mean to each other, but it was like both of them had the same arguments. It's like, stop being a sheep, wake up, it's all fake news. Like, where you get information from, so it was like, and it was very fascinating to watch that on a micro scale of, like, what is the world now, or at least this country. Right. It's like people just can't agree on anything. So, but we decided that when we do respond, and what we like to do is we just do random quotes from movies we like. Like, we don't even, it's like, we're not really responding to their thing. So, it's like, but if people give us, we don't mind feedback, but if someone's being a troll, if someone's just being like a dick because they don't have time to do anything else, then those people we engage with. So, but we love getting feedback. We love when people tell us what they like, don't like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So. Do you have a favorite episode thus far? I know that's a hard thing to say, but.
I do actually. Greg did one on the death penalty, and there was a thing, and I forget when it was, but basically, if you were going to be executed, you were put in a bag with a snake, a rooster, a monkey, and a dog, I think. And they'd put you in this bag, and this bag, and they would throw you in the water. And it was just, I don't know why, but that was just the craziest thing to learn. And it may have been during maybe like Roman times, like the Roman Empire. Maybe that's what it was from. But it was like this crazy thing, because basically the snake would be biting everything. The dog, it's like the dog would be biting you. So you're just like, everybody's just killing everybody because they're all drowning, and so it's just this weird thing. And we just had a lot of really good jokes about that penalty. But the thing that we've noticed about our show is that we always start out funny, and then we kind of get serious at the end, because we actually, it turns out, like, sexism, racism, like, and class warfare has been going on since the beginning of humanity. So it's like, it always kind of comes back to those three things, So, and that, like, it's very rare. Even like the most innocuous subjects, we find that you end up, you kind of end up there. Mm-hmm. So, which is fascinating.
Yeah. So here you are. So what episode are you on now?
The problem is we don't number the episodes. The way we title them is we title them based on, like, something that is said in the episode. So, for example, that episode is called A Rooster, a monkey, a dog, and a man, or something like that. And it makes it hard because if you want to go back and listen to an episode, you have to kind of go through. Yeah, you got to know where that was. But we're in the high 20s or low 30s.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's actually good to kind of be forced to know the title. It makes me think of, when we had records and tapes and the linear notes and CDs, I would know the titles of songs, but even once I got to CDs, I stopped knowing the titles of songs after a while, and now I don't know them at all.
Right, because you don't need to.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's number one in Spotify on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
You make a playlist, and the playlist just plays, and you kind of forget who it is.
Yeah, I just know the artist. I
Yeah.
don't know the album. I don't know the year. Yeah, all that stuff is out the window now. So here we are in quarantine. Aside from your podcast, is there anything that you're doing to stay creative in quarantine?
No, I mean, just other than hanging out with you. But I do. It's really interesting because I do miss improv, and it's funny because like we had all kind of like backed off. We were all doing other things, before this happened, and now I'm just like, oh man, like and I think that's also why I really want to get back into stand up. It's the same reason I haven't been to a gym in years, and now I'm just like, oh, I want to go to. There's like so many things I want to do that I haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
But I really do miss the. So I remember. There was a moment, and I don't remember, like you and I were in Con 2, or well, I guess not 2 because you weren't there. But anyway, it's Con 2, Con 3, something like that. But it was the characters one when you did Majestic.
Oh, that was Conservatory 4. Yeah,
okay.
Teacher, that's how I remember.
And I remember in that moment, I was so impressed by like that character you created like that. And I also... It was just like, and it's just like, I can explain to your audience, but they're not going to get it, right? How do you explain that? But it was just it was just like, you were not Tiwana, you were Majestic, and you were like this dude. And I just remember thinking like, oh God, I am never going to be able to, that is not my skill. Right. And I was so like envious, but also just so in awe. But I was very clear about what my skill was and like what I brought to the table.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then that's why I really do love our improv troupe, is because I think we all bring very different things individually, and I think those individual things coalesce very well to make some pretty good scenes. And so I miss that. I really would love to get back to that. Yeah. And I mean that was like our doing something where I even had a thought where I was like, how could we do things on Skype or Zoom or whatever, where it wouldn't feel, because everybody's doing that now, right? So it's like, how do you do it where it doesn't look like this,
right?
So, and I don't know what the answer is to that, but I really have been thinking about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the television commercials. Once we first embarked on quarantine, every commercial you saw was a grid of something.
Yeah.
And so now they're trying to break away from that, but they're not there 100%. But something hi.
Courtney.
Hey, Courtney.
This is my fiance. He's going for a little hike right now. So.
Enjoy your hike.
Oh, it's really funny. Normally when you're here, you have your headphones on, which is why I wasn't talking.
Oh.
That is true. Yeah.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yeah,
bye. Sorry. So sorry.
That's perfect. We're going to keep it. What was I going to say? Quarantine. Oh, talking about, Majestic. Basically how that, because I didn't know that I had that in me. And so that came from our teacher, shout out to Mark Rosecca, who was taking us through how you create a character. And it was all starting with a position and how a part of your body that you hold differently from your normal self.
Yeah.
I can't remember what part of my body I changed, but whatever it was, it snapped me into a very specific New York guy who probably did some time in prison, very intelligent and very straightforward. And then Majestic was born.
And he had a name, but he got rid of that a long time ago. He became Majestic in prison, probably.
Probably. Yeah. I think he was probably what we call a 5%er. I think he had found the Nation of Islam, and whether that was in the streets or
I like that.
But he came from someplace else. I think he exists because he took over my body. And
Was it Gina? Who was in the scene with you?
It was Gina.
Yeah, because she was terrified.
Well, normally when you work with her, because she's so quick.
She is, yeah.
First time where she became quiet, and I didn't know why, so I just kept on going. And after a while, she said, "Yeah, I was terrified." Well, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. That was, and it was like weird. I remember that was like a moment for me. I was just like, oh man, like I really want to do something with Tiwana. Like I want to, like, this is like such a great, because it has been. I miss it, right? It's like really funny that we, and I don't even know the last time we did a show, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, really long
time where you, myself, and Daoud did a show, and Faye was out of town, or was she injured? But yeah.
Oh right, so we did. Yeah, we were doing like a little bit of stuff in 2019, but we just weren't. Yeah, we weren't doing anything regular, and it was just be like man, like I really do want to get back, and and then maybe that's the thing is like maybe now's the time to write another show. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I think so too. Yeah, we can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
So in this quarantine, has there been anything that you read or music or anything that just has been keeping you uplifted or inspired or anything?
Yeah, actually there is. So I am like you and I will joke about this, or we will talk about we're the same kind of asshole. So I think that I am a realist, and I am just very in tune with what the world is, and a lot of people find me to be very pessimistic or negative. So Courtney basically is like, you have to do something. Like she's like, you're just too negative. Like, you have to do something. So I started reading this book called Learned Optimism.
Okay.
And it has been just in general, right, for my life. It is definitely making a big difference. And there's another book called Existential Kink.
K-I-N-K?
Yeah, K-I-N-K. Yep, Kink. And it basically, so the Learned Optimism is about, basically like the outcome is going to be whatever the outcome is going to be. You have no control. Well, I will say you have no control, but there's a lot of things you have no control over, right? Like I cannot control who's going to be president. I mean, I can vote, but in the end, it's like up to society, and I cannot control what's going to happen with weather. And I can, there's all these things I cannot control that I think about all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, you can't control what's going to happen, but you certainly can control how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And and so it's like optimists in general tend to live longer. They tend to age better. They tend to have less health problems. So I'm just like, all right, like I'm really going to focus on that. And then Existential Kink is about, and I'm only about a third of the way through both of these. I'm reading them simultaneously. And Existential Kink is really about leaning into the darkness, right? And kind of saying that, so, so if you always get anger and then you feel guilty about being angry, that ultimately there's part of you, of your subconscious, that really enjoys being angry. It really gets pleasure out of being angry. So it's like going deep and finding how are you getting pleasure out of all these things that you feel shame about, or that you regret, or you wish you didn't do. Or so that has been really trippy. And that was actually suggested, my friend Jess, she's always like, hey, you should read this book, you should read this book, you should read this book. And that one was actually, it's been a really good book. So I'm looking forward to finishing it and actually doing the work and seeing if I can kind of lean into the darkness in a sense.
Mm-hmm. So there's a reward for these behaviors that we get, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
That.
And that's the thing is like, even, and it goes into even society, right? It's like there is a pleasure in the shitty things we do to each other, like as a not what's the word I'm looking for, like I guess like consciously, right? Like the grand consciousness. That's like there is these things. There's like, for all of us, there's like joy in hating each other. There's joy in like being right, and there's this power, and there's all these things. And so it's like, rather than denying all of that, own that. And then realize that it's all just made up bullshit.
Exactly.
So,
right.
Yeah. So.
You're a realist, and then none of it's real at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or it's like, or we create the world, Like
Right.
the world is either beautiful or the world's either ugly, and it's how we see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We made it up.
right. So intellectually, I can grasp that. To live that is very hard for me.
Mm-hmm. And so now that you have, let's see, your broker lumber, you've done some stand up, you're looking to do some stand up now. You have.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to get back into a club.
Okay. I think I know someone who, well, I know someone who is doing it online, kind of like this, and he does it weekly. And I'll
Right.
put you guys in contact because
Right.
you probably share the same humor. And not that you have to share the same humor, but I think it would be a good match.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
I'll put you guys in touch when we're done here. And so then in terms of, let's see, upcoming project, are there, aside from, well, no, it could be the podcast. It might be something that you want to talk about that's coming up. Is there anything new that's coming up that you want people to know, or just anything that you want to share in general that you want people to know about you?
Man, is there, if anybody would love to, sponsor our podcast and give us $1 million, that'd be awesome. It's funny. I do have an opportunity through doing all this, and we'll see if it actually comes to be. But two guys I know, they're writing a kind of a film noir kind of podcast. They're doing this like story-based podcast, and they want me to read it and be able to characters. Mm-hmm. And I think that'd be really fun, so that hasn't happened, but that is something that they have reached out to me. And if that were to happen, I don't know, it'd just be fun. Like I've never, like everything I've ever done, I've always been like a creator, and I've just never been the voice, or, I've never I've never done that. And, so I think that's about it. I don't really have anything, I got lumber stuff going on, but that's not, but but honestly, at the end of the day too, that's like part of my, part of my ability to sell stuff is that like where I stand out, my competitors, I make my customers laugh, and I have these relationships with them that, I don't think a lot of people would have. So
exactly. Right. You bring creativity into the sales.
Yeah.
Sales floor? It's not really a floor, but into the sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hard.
And I don't know. I feel like there's this sales guru guy, and he wrote that. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, he wrote this book, and he was talking about his book. He's like, if you really, a lot of people don't think they're creative, but the truth is that we are creative every day.
Right.
We just don't realize we're being creative. It's like even when we get up in the morning and we back out of our driveway, if we go left or we go right, that is a creative choice.
Right.
Because we are thinking of like, it's not just, I'm going to go left. It's like, I'm going to go left because then that's going to put me on this street, and then I'm going to get on this freeway. And then, so it's like every day it's like we are thinking and creating our world.
Right. We're designing it as well.
Right. Yeah. So I guess the answer to your question is my upcoming project is my life.
I love it.
Yeah. That's some deep shit, right? I don't know.
Something to think about.
Thanks again for watching Creatives in Quarantine. I'll see you next time. But hey, don't forget to like, share, or subscribe.